users spent nearly 10 billion hours on social media in June 2024. New media is here to rule and how.
Traditional media offerings are being challenged.
Tell us what kind of formats do you foresee working and what hasn't worked?
Today on Instagram, you don't need to have an X number of following or scale for your videos to go viral. It's about understanding what is topical, what is trending, what are those almost micro trends that grab the attention of the viewer.
How do you perceive this, the role of AI in social media, especially news home?
Fake news as a malaise on social media existed even pre-AI. I think what AI has done is that it has sort of accelerated.
Reuters Institute says that 40% of the respondents in a particular study globally said that they don't trust the content that they're seeing. How do you build credibility and authenticity?
Build your own tribe, talk about you to other people, and hopefully those people will convert and people will come to you.
Our guest today is Rishi Mukherjee. He is the co-founder and CEO of Jist Media. He's also one of the brains behind ScoopWhoop. Hello and welcome to What India Needs podcast with me, Shutapa Paul. Indian users spent nearly 10 billion hours on social media in June 2024. New media is here to rule and how. Our guest today is Rishi Mukherjee. He is the co-founder and CEO of Jist Media. He's also one of the brains behind ScoopWhoop. Rishi, thank you for coming on What India Needs podcast.
Thank you for having me, Shutapa.
So we are discussing new media, and of course, you all are a big player in it right now. Would you say traditional media is dying or reaching its end because we see a lot of proliferation of new media? It's a bit of a dramatic statement, but where do you think things stand?
I don't think traditional. So I look at it in two ways. I think traditional media offerings are being challenged, and a lot of them are quickly, approaching some form of extinction or irrelevance. But if I look at the other side, which are traditional media companies, I don't think they are, going towards an extinction or towards an end. I think what they're doing is that they're reforming and rethinking, recalibrating, and they're trying to find the best way possible to maintain their ethos, maintain their dominance, but having to, deal or grapple with ever evolving technology and media landscape that's kind of changing almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Today.
So a lot of rejigging. It's a lot of breaking down of what we thought content and journalism and social media when it first started was to what it is today. It's forcing everyone to take a relook at where they stand.
Absolutely. I think, I think this is true for any big technological, something that sort of disrupts the normal status quo.
Yeah.
I think people take time to sort of come to terms with what that means. So it happened when, audiences moved from print to radio to television. And now from television, now that they've moved sort of en masse to digital and social, I think some companies deal with it better than the others.
Yeah.
So, they're slightly more nimble on their feet. They're slightly more agile. Some companies have sort of been in denial for some time till, the captain has seen the iceberg and the ship is about to hit, and they've been forced to make changes.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think these shifts have been so dramatic and it's been so quick at the same time, that people are still finding their feet. Some have found their feet, but you're not sure whether the ground, your footing is sound there. So I think it's a constant sort of going back to the drawing board, seeing what's working. Things that might have worked even a quarter ago might not be relevant today.
Yeah.
So I think the turnaround times and thinking on your feet has sort of also catapulted quite a bit.
Yeah. A lot of younger generation obviously taking to digital media. A lot of older generation actually. I think a lot of our parents' generation, I think they consume more on WhatsApp and
Yeah.
Facebook than maybe we do.
Yeah.
What are the formats? We know that short form content is doing well, but you also mentioned that some things didn't work, some are working.
Right.
So tell us, what kind of formats do you foresee working and what hasn't worked?
See, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, the content landscape that we are in today, most content creators are at the mercy of third-party social media platforms. So you're constantly trying to second guess what the platform wants, what people are engaging with, and also having to keep one eye out on how these platforms themselves are looking at user engagement on their own platform. So anything from a small tweak in the algorithm to new features being launched to new tools for not only media companies, content creators, but also for the general, for the general public who are not who don't look at themselves as influencers or content creators.
Right.
I think all of these factors are crucial here. Um, so, for example, I'll give you a small example. Today on Instagram, you don't need to have an X number of following or scale for your videos to go viral or to get an audience that you think sort of hits the benchmark in terms of virality.
Right.
Today, if you have a following of say 20,000 people on your Instagram page, but you're making very sticky viral reel content, or not even viral reel content, but even something which is very topical in the news, you can get that reel to go viral. It'll get you 500,000, 2 million, 3 million views. So this is a very small, but it's a very significant, crucial way of looking at content today. So even couple of years ago, people were more concerned about how many people are liking my page or subscribing to my channel. But at least with Meta, and even to a certain extent Google on YouTube and Shorts, it's not relevant anymore. You could be a 30,000 page, but you could be doing reels in 2.5, 30, 3
It's
million.
about the engagement now.
It's about the engagement. It's about understanding what is topical, what is trending, what are those almost micro trends that grab the attention of the viewer. Because what social media platforms have done, especially thanks to reels, is that you don't need to go to the publisher or the content creator's page anymore. Your algorithm is sort of mining your data, mining your habits, your viewing habits, your consumption habits, and they're kind of almost curating a list that they think would suit you or satisfy your needs the most. So yeah, that's
creators and publishers in
right.
this new age of new media would be following those trends and making content to suit some of the trends which are, the predictive algorithm.
I mean, absolutely. If you are playing that game, and I'm assuming that even though a lot of publishers might say that no, we're not playing the numbers game. We don't want, the huge viral numbers. We don't want our reels to trend because the subjects or the topics that we're dealing with are slightly more niche, or it's not a massy subject. But you still need a critical number of eyeballs, whatever that benchmark you have done for your content or for your target audience. So, having said that, that is where media companies need to understand that how do we keep this stuff up, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to sort of make something and hope that it'll go viral today. So, recalibrating metrics, seeing how those metrics, link back to the content, those kinds of things are very important today.
So a lot of data analytics would be important, right? I mean, factoring what is working, not working.
Yes, I mean, a lot of data analytics, but also a lot of, it's almost like you have to live and breathe the medium today. I mean, if you want to really understand what people are consuming on social media, you can't do a half and half. It's, I mean, you'll have to listen to the kids in the room, because they are on the medium 24/7, right? So they understand when something is going to trend, what is the next big trend around the corner. They can see it a day or two or maybe a week in advance, and you have to trust them and you have to sort of go with that flow. Coming to data analytics, I think, again, fortunately, unfortunately, because we are putting out content on third-party platforms, you are also then relying on third-party platform analytics and whatever they are giving you. So most marketers look at social media platforms as walled gardens, right? Where they'll give you some analytics about how your content is behaving, but not enough to sort of give you the whole picture.
Right.
You'll get some kind of an approximation as to what is working, what is not working, but it's still a lot of throwing darts in the dark and seeing what hits.
Wow. And also a lot of monitoring, right? I mean, you have to just have your finger on the pulse, as you said.
I think it's a lifestyle. I think,
It's
people,
exhausting.
it, not for,
Social media can be exhausting.
social media can be exhausting for people like us who were sort of half enough.
Yes.
But
When you said half enough, I thought about
yeah, I
myself
mean, we grew up in an
immediately.
age where TV was omniscient. We
Yeah.
wanted to go back home, watch TV,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then, so first the internet came, then apps came, then social media came. So we had that kind of initiation into social media. But there is now a generation who grew up and there was there was
Yeah.
Facebook or there was Instagram. Earlier there was TikTok, for example. Uh, I mean, for them, it's a lifestyle.
Hmm.
So for them, it's almost, I mean, they don't have to think about it. It's almost like a reflex. It's like an instinct. Um, and you can't beat that today. I mean, today, maturity of social media and the way trends are, I think, and that's why trends come from that audience, from
Yeah.
that demographic as well, what we call Gen Z today.
Yeah.
So
It's still Gen Z, or
I
has
think
it?
I think the
I think it's
I think
progressed
it's
somewhere.
progressed, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I mean, just look, I mean, from Gen Z we're talking about the next generation.
Yeah.
So, but having said that, though, that audience is at a more advantageous position because for them it's almost like looking at like the back of their hand. They don't need to think about it anymore. While as we have to make that effort to study, even though we
Yeah.
might not enjoy something.
Yeah.
But if you want to stay relevant, at least in digital and social, you have to make that effort. That's your homework.
Yeah. So, obviously there is tech, there is data analytics, pushing out content is
Right.
becoming easier because there are, platforms that are allowing you to schedule the content. There is ease of creating content as well. So we have those tools.
Right.
But with AI comes a different kind of threat, right? There is ethics which gets involved. There is fake news.
Right.
How do you perceive this, the role of AI in social media, especially news moderation?
See, I mean, this is I mean, look, I mean, we were just talking about how technology is changing and the pace at which it is changing.
Yeah.
I mean, AI a couple of years ago was still something on the fringe.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about the dangers of AI and how it's going to affect news and, fake news, etc. So that's the pace. But I mean, this is such a vast, subject. It's like a story that is developing almost every other day, every other week. But at the stage that we are with AI in India at the moment, I think while there is definitely a danger and a risk of AI generated content getting into the overall sort of cluster of fake news, but as far as the other side is concerned, which is publishers and content creators utilizing AI, and there's also this huge argument that AI will come for your jobs, and a lot of jobs will be irrelevant or redundant. I think we are sort of getting there in certain aspects.
Yeah.
So, for example, at Gist, we use AI. I mean, I would say very nominally, still, mostly in the technical side of content creation.
Right.
So, for example, if we need a quick voiceover, we might test an AI tool and see whether the voiceover, fits our profile, because it's just easier, it's more convenient. You need to save time. Otherwise, you'll have to do the whole, call up the voiceover artist, book
Yeah.
a studio, all of these things. Those kinds of things, AI is kind of helping right now. A chat GPT will sort of proofread your script for any grammatical or spelling errors. It might sort of make, add a word or subtract a word to make the script more exciting or land, probably, given if you give it the proper prompts. So I think right now Gist is utilizing AI in this sort of level, which is still, I would say, in the margins of
Right.
actual content creation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there is one answer as to that these are the dangers of AI,
Yeah.
and this is what we can do to counter them. I think I'm a big fan of Yuval Noah Harari, and I keep listening to a lot of his interviews and podcasts, and he has been one of the most loudest voices talking about how the moment for AI is right now.
Right.
And how we have to be more cognizant of the fact that we are not dealing, I mean, he doesn't call it artificial intelligence, he calls it alien intelligence. Because for the first time we'll be dealing with an intelligence that is not carbon,
Yeah.
driven, coming from carbon substances, right? So it is something which we have no idea about.
Yeah.
So there are definitely pitfalls and dangers, but I think as it goes beyond just media content creation. Of course,
Yeah.
there's a huge, but I think it goes beyond that. So I think, I just hope that, like Yuval says, is that governments, policymakers, general public, I think we need to have more conversation. I don't think we should do the same thing that we do with climate change with AI. I
Right.
think we need to be more careful right now about AI, or at least ask the right questions of AI, rather than wait another 5, 10 years and when the doomsday clock is about to hit 12,
Yeah.
and then you're asking questions like, what do we do with the climate? So I think we need to be more cognizant of that fact.
Like, plan, be proactive, don't be retrospective, because a lot of the policies, unfortunately, that we've seen, especially in the new media space,
Yeah,
also
yeah,
has been retrospective. It's
yeah,
looking back, and certain things have been put in place because it's a new thing.
correct. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
emerging.
yeah,
But with AI, since there are so many luminaries who are talking about the pros and the cons,
right.
you're right. I mean, we need to plan today so that
Yeah,
we're not
yeah,
in some kind of AI mess
exactly.
in future.
Exactly. Because see, fake news as a malaise on social media
Yeah.
existed even pre AI.
Yeah.
I think what AI has done is that it has sort of accelerated
And
or added
provided
to
a
that,
sophistication
or
to
provided a
fake
sophistication.
news, where
That's
it's very
correct.
difficult
Yeah,
now
yeah,
to, which was my question,
yeah,
that with new media
right,
and also younger platforms, YouTube, I mean, this podcast is a product of new media as
right,
well,
right.
but there is also a chance, a very strong chance, that fake news, misinformation,
Yeah,
things that can create serious issues. And we've seen
right,
violence happening, riots happening, things like that.
right,
How do we combat this? Because we still want new media to grow,
right,
but at the same time it comes with this big challenge.
right. So I think it has to be done on various levels. I think at a policy government level, for sure, we need some guidelines and some policies as to how to. I mean, it's easier said than done because it's such a difficult and challenging task. But somebody's got to do it, and I
Yeah.
think it has to happen bottom up and top down. So top down from government policies, etc. Social media platforms itself, they're doing quite a bit. I mean, today you need to flag off if you've used AI in your
Yeah.
content. I think they are the best poised because technologically, as a platform, they are giving the space to creators, whether people using AI or people just creating content. They are at the forefront, so they know what's happening, who is using, utilizing, misusing the platform. So I think the strongest checks and balances have to come from the platforms themselves. That's number one. There
Yeah.
has to be a check and balance at a at a government, central government level. There has to be, like we have for oil. I think like we have for energy and for arms, we need to have like countries coming together for like AI conferences, and
Yeah.
what are the best practices? How do we solve? How do we, like, for example, save jobs in the face of AI? How do we tackle things like fake news?
Yeah.
I think all of those have to come. I don't think it's just that we leave it to the government, or we
Yeah.
leave it to the to Meta or Google to solve this. I don't think
Yeah.
it can be like that. I think
Yeah.
it needs to take more effort from all pillars of society.
Yeah, absolutely. And also because, there will be job loss, and there is job
Yeah,
loss in certain sectors for sure.
yeah,
And, we can understand that because human resource, while
yeah,
so important, is a
yeah,
pain,
yeah,
right? So if you have a chance to mechanize something, automate something, people will do it. But can we upskill? Can we create new jobs? Can we uh, teach the younger generation or the current generation skills which makes them employable,
right,
even in the age of AI?
right,
Very interesting. You mentioned that the government should, look at laws, and there are, of course, certain laws in the
yeah,
works. But it can be a double-edged sword as well, right? Too much regulation
right,
has many times killed industries as
right.
well. So don't you fear that too many laws governing digital platforms may have an impact on freedoms?
I mean, it. I mean, yes and no. I mean, in the sense that I think things like these you can only take a call at when these policies are actually in motion, when they're on the ground and people are dealing with it. I think it's very easy to sort of sit back and say that we shouldn't have any regulation and people, we need to trust the people. But I don't think it can happen like that, because we are dealing with multinational companies with massive pockets, with massive lobbying power. So how do you get enough leverage with those people, if not via
Yeah.
bodies in government, right?
True.
Via policies. So like I said, like countries and states need to sort of have self interest of their citizens at heart. We're doing with various other industries and
Yeah.
sectors, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have that same kind of approach with AI.
So this is where I stand on this, and I completely agree with you. When you said that big companies and corporations, I'll give you a small example. YouTube is a wonderful platform. They have an AI check, right? Which is they're not checking for AI. They are checking for any kind of content which could be unverified, it could be contentious, it could be political.
Right.
So every time, even if our team wants to promote a video, we have a whole issue because it's asking for an election certificate.
Right.
So some of these things which have been put in place maybe during election season,
Right.
not Maharashtra election, I'm talking general elections,
Right.
those are picking on videos which have nothing to do with politics. So it
Right.
is a check which has
Right.
been put in place to
Right.
safeguard
Right.
maybe fake news, maybe those kind of very vitiated content, but it's
Right.
also doing the opposite. So
Right.
there's a whole lot of finesse which needs to go into the systems which are there.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be collaborative. I firmly believe that government alone can't do anything, and
Yeah.
even the corporations,
Right.
they need to speak to people who are doing it, maybe have publishing platforms as
Right.
yourselves,
Right.
big creators who could be giving the feedback,
Right.
which helps them bring that sophistication
Yeah. Yeah.
into their
Yeah.
workings.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's even I feel that there has to be. I think social media companies today, as this things stand, they're not really differentiating between legacy media
Yeah.
companies or companies, even new media companies with who kind of have traditional ways of creating content almost, right? So people who are in news, new media companies who are creating news, or who are going on ground or doing research based content. I think there is a certain, I think if you just look at the way, and I think it sort of ties back to the revenue models also, because if you look at countries like Australia, the EU, they're constantly sort of, there's a tussle between, is Google taking away keeping enough revenue on the table for legacy media to sort of survive and thrive.
Yeah.
Do legacy media legacy media companies survive without a Google and a Meta today? So there's a lot of things at play like that, but also from the point of view of social media giants, I think that they don't make any distinction between a certain kind of content creator
Yeah.
versus everyone else. I think they've democratized it to such a level
Yeah.
that everybody's on that even playing field.
Absolutely.
I mean, now it depends on which side of the divide you stand. So if you are an independent content creator, it's great for you, because today you are, I mean, with your limited assets, with your limitations, you can now go up and challenge a well-established legacy media, for eyeballs or reach or engagement. But if you're standing on the other side, you
Yeah.
were basically saying that I need to be giving more respect, or I should be given more time than the person who's just bought a phone and he's going out on the streets, he
Yeah.
or she's going on the streets and creating content. So I mean, yeah, it's like it. I mean, for me, I kind of, it depends on which side of the bed I wake up each morning.
Yeah.
To be very
Because you
honest.
have both the beds in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
your
yeah,
current team,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's interesting. That's exciting, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, it's undeniable that what social media has done is that it's sort of empowered the general public. You're not reliant on 5 to 6 big media houses to give you content and tell you what is news. You can create communities of your own. You can reach out to people who like your content. You can find ways to monetize that content.
Yeah.
You don't have big HR, admin, finance departments that you don't need to have large capex to set up a TV station and anchors who are going 24/7. You can just do it from a studio, from your home, from the streets, anywhere. So I think that's there. But with that, there is also the fact that what is the verification of content? How do you verify content? Who are your sources? Those kinds of things. So, I mean, I don't know where this is going to lead. The impact of both is very evident. There are good things here, there are bad things here, there are good things here, there are bad things here. So, I mean, I don't think anybody knows what this is going to lead to. People just have some educated guesses.
And winging it.
And everybody's just kind of winging it.
Yeah. And why not? It's like we are adding 8.3 new users every second as per last year's data. I mean, social media, digital, that's where it's all happening. It's such a great market. But globally, there is also a decline of trust in the content that is going out. This is Reuters Institute says that 40% of the respondents in a particular study globally said that they don't trust the content that they're seeing. Now, that is because there is a lot of, again, fake news and AI generated content and deep fakes, also a huge issue.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a young company yourselves, how do you all gain that trust? How do you build credibility and authenticity? This is for everybody else who's listening as well or watching.
I think it's a little bit like what I mean, you have to be a little attached and detached at the same time. I think I'm going a little philosophical. You can do the best that you can to sort of create content that you think is well researched. You are not playing with the sentiment of the user, or titillating the user or provoking the user in a certain way. You're trying to not bore the user to death, but you are still following the sort of the main safeguards of how a content should be sourced, verified, checked, and then finally produced to the user. So I think the attachment can only be there once it's out you've made it live, you've pushed it live. Then it is you just hope that other users have the sense to seek you out and hopefully see the effort that you're doing. And then over a period of time, I think time is a big factor here. I think if you are doing the same thing over and over again and you're building routine and familiarity with your community, then I think you will then attract people outside of your community as well, right? New users. So I think the metric here is repeat users, at least at Jist, what we do. We see how many people have come back to see a content after they've seen it the first time. I think that is a metric that a lot of content creators today look at, because that the first thing that you need to do is build your own tribe, like vibe with your own tribe first. And that tribe will then become evangelists and, talk about you to other people, and hopefully those people will convert and come to you. I think that is very important.
So this metric also, you are dependent on third party, or would a company like yours have a separate data team?
No, you have to be dependent on the third party. So that's what I'm saying. So basically today, if you are creating content and disseminating it on third party social media, you are dependent on them. And there are third party tools, but they are not as, you can make do without those tools, because the analytics that the third party platform will give you is more or less exhaustive enough to make you give you an indication that what is working and what is not working. They can't give you very granular data. That granularity only comes if a media company or a content creator owns the platform on which the content is being consumed. So for example, a media company having an app, a New York Times app, the amount of analytics that the New York Times can get from its app will be way higher, way more granular, way more detailed than what a New York Times can glean from its Instagram or a Facebook page. Because the kind of analytics that a New York Times will get from its Facebook page is the same that Jist will get, is the same that you will get, is the same that anybody will get, irrespective of the scale of the operations. But what a New York Times can glean from its own app is way, way, way higher.
So let's talk about, on that note, let's talk about your personal journey as well,
Sure.
because let's talk about Gist.
Sure.
I love the name, of
Thank
course.
you.
And your background is advertising, and
Right.
you first, of course, co-founded ScoopWhoop,
Right.
another huge success. So how did ScoopWhoop come about? How did Gist come about? What were your thoughts when you started these ventures?
So I think ScoopWhoop, it was almost. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a completely an accident, but it was all. We started it off as an experiment, to be very honest. So I mean, me and my co-founders, Satvik and Shripanna, we were batchmates in Indian Institute of Mass Communication. And Satvik and myself, Satvik and myself were also at Web Chutney, which is now called Dentsu Web Chutney, which is a
Yeah.
digital advertising agency. We spent about 5 years there, and we were at that point in time. Digital was still kind of making its way into mainstream, and and at that time, not a lot of people spoke about the internet, like they do today, of course. So we were exposed to a lot of trends that were happening in more digitally mature countries like the US and the UK and the Western countries, basically, because our jobs was basically to take brands and add a layer of digital marketing and nascent social media marketing, and most of the trends were set in places like the States and UK. So we were exposed to new media probably earlier than most people would
BuzzFeed
be.
would have
Yeah, so
inspired
there
you
was
a lot,
BuzzFeed, there was
right?
Vice, Vox had just started. So these were sort of new media companies that were growing very rapidly. I mean, they had launched and they were sort of making big strides. And because we were kind of exposed to the space on a daily basis, we also became consumers of that kind of content. And we felt that it didn't look like something which needed a lot of like effort, to be very honest, to recreate, sitting on the intersection of technology and pop culture, utilizing social media for distribution and eyeballs. It didn't look like something which was a very difficult thing to sort of do. So we started it. I mean, we started ScoopWhoop, like we've set up the website in a month's time, and we launched, I think, in 2013, 15th of August on Independence Day, 14th of August
While you all
actually.
were still at
We were still at
Web
Web Chutney.
Chutney,
Yeah, we
yeah.
were working in Web Chutney during the day, and in the evening used to get together, think of articles, and put it up on the website. And I think the first, third, or fourth article that we put up just went viral within a certain. I mean, very surprisingly, it went viral within the Web Chutney group itself
Right.
first. Um, I don't know how that happened. It was accident, luck. I think it was pure luck. But we came back one day to office and saw that half the computers had this article open on their laptop, and then we were like, either we've been found out that we've been doing this and people are looking at it and we're going to get fired today, or it's traveling. This kind of content is
Yeah.
traveling, and then cut to.
But you were supported, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
we were
believe
supported
you had
by
a good
Siddharth Rao,
boss.
who was
Yeah.
the founder and CEO of Web Chutney. He got to know that we were the guys behind it, so he called us for. We thought we were going to either get a sounding off or he's going to say shut this operation down. But he basically said that you need to do this full time, because this kind of business doesn't have a lot of like anybody can sort of 2-3 people can come together. A college kid sitting somewhere in his dorm can do this probably. So you need to achieve scale very quickly in this and create the difference between you and the next guy coming in. So for that to happen, you need to form a company, do this full time, hire, etc., etc. So I think that was one big impetus, and then very surprisingly, I think 2-3 months into ScoopWhoop being there, we got a Twitter DM from Ben Smith, who was then the editor in chief at BuzzFeed. I think he had just moved from Politico.
Right.
And I mean, it was just sort of like brain breaking to even know that
Yeah.
3 people randomly doing content somewhere in Delhi, in a country like India, and the pioneers of new media in a way, their editor in chief knowing about
Wow.
this, that kind of gave us a lot of confidence.
And what did he say? What did the DM say?
So he basically said that there are a lot of BuzzFeed copycats, he used that word, around the world, but ScoopWhoop is definitely the best. And he also told us,
Condescending much, but
yeah,
well,
condescending, but
take it. We'll take
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
compliment. Yeah.
And he also said that, BuzzFeed was studying the Indian market and they were planning to launch in India. So would we like to come and sort of exchange notes and see if we could be the people, I mean, involved in the
Right.
BuzzFeed India launch. But it was like such, I mean, very early days. I mean, we had not even thought whether we'll go at this full time. The company was not formed, all of these things. So, yeah, I mean, it was almost like, the before the Gautam Buddha became Buddha, he saw those three signs. He
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
that
yeah.
old woman and that blind man and all that.
Yeah.
So I almost look at that phase, those 6 months phase, as these validations that came one after the other,
Wow.
because it was a big thing for us, because we were pretty comfortable in our career trajectory at Web Chutney was pretty sorted, at least in the digital marketing space. There were enough opportunities coming our way. So it was a kind of punt, a risk to sort of, say that, okay, we'll not do this, and I don't know where our next paycheck is going to come from, how are we going to sustain ourselves. So it was a risk, but I think these validations, one after the other, at such quick steps, helped us take that decision that yes, this is something that we've now got validation from. So, for example, we got validation from Times. Satyan Gajwani called us for an interview and said that,
Oh.
why don't you merge with the Times and do this?
Right.
And I think those signs, we kind of knew that we are onto
Did you
something.
get seed funding from anybody
So
which
we
would
got
help?
seed funding from Siddharth Rao and
Right.
Haresh Chawla. So they gave us seed funding because he said that you have to do this full time. So you need to quit your jobs. You need to take
That's
up an office
amazing. I
space.
mean, to have that vision, I think that is
Yeah, I
also
think a lot of
great.
kudos goes to him
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, but he was that kind of character.
Yeah.
I think we thought of ScoopWhoop. We could have only thought of ScoopWhoop at a place like Web Chutney. So a lot of that credit has to go to him and the kind of environment he created at Web Chutney at that time.
Okay, so that's about ScoopWhoop. It of course took off and great success, and you eventually exited it. What was your idea behind Gist? And it's very interesting because we mentioned about the two beds or two boats. I think two boats would be a better example. You have very experienced people who are part of ScoopWhoop who bring in a lot of traditional journalistic experience, and you also have the young creators and journalists as well. So, how do you navigate this whole new dimension of new media, content creation, and journalism?
Uh, I think the gist thing came because towards the latter tenure of ScoopWhoop, all the founders are also grown up. To be very honest,
Yeah.
so
I like you
uh,
say grown up. I would
yeah,
have
I
said
mean, we had
grown old.
matured. I mean, see, you start, giving a damn about policy and government
Yeah.
and these kinds of things when you are affected by these in a very real, everyday way, right? Taxes and whether the facilities are working or not. Uh, whether your kids can go to school or have online school, like the pollution right now. So when you see the impact of these kinds of things, you kind of leave that lala land world which you sort of occupy probably in your mid 20s when you're still like हाँ ठीक है देखेंगे types. So I think we had grown up also running ScoopWhoop, doing different kinds of content. We had sort of also started, I think, content that we were targeting the ScoopWhoop audience with kind of started feeling flat to us as founders because we stopped relating to that content after a point of time. Now, we couldn't pull the plug there because a huge section of audience was relating to that content. But I think personally, all of us kind of felt a little jaded that we are not consuming our own content, which was the reason why we had started ScoopWhoop also, because we liked consuming that fun, engaging content. So I think that even though we didn't put it in words or articulate it like the way I'm telling it, but I think now looking back, if you ask any of the ScoopWhoop co-founders, they would say the same thing. So I think when we were starting Gist, me and Satvik, we thought that we need to deal with topics that affect us right now where we are in life. I think that was one big strong point, that we should be consuming our own content for starters, like we had started at ScoopWhoop. So now we are both parents. I mean, I'm 40, he's going to be 40 in another 2-3 years. So what are the kind of content that we consume? So politics, current affairs, news, analysis, those kinds of things. So that was one reason why we have started Gist, and Gist does the kind of content that it does. But the ScoopWhoop DNA comes in there, where we feel that these subjects are not supposed to be difficult, or there shouldn't be obstacles to either relating with these subjects or understanding these subjects. So how do we break down complicated issues?
You're dumbing it down also.
Dumbing is the wrong word.
I purposely used it. I want to see
So-
your reaction to it.
Yeah, so breaking down complex
Simplifying.
issues, simplifying.
Yeah.
Because I think that is definitely one thing that legacy media has out itself, that it's sort of complicated and intellectualized news to a very severe degree. And I don't think social media is at all the platform for that. It is there to a certain extent, but it can't all be intellectualized, a certain suited up content.
Yeah.
So I think that is the ScoopWhoop angle that we brought. Things like language. If you look at the way content is consumed today by people on social media, language is very important. I mean, it's a very fluidic digital sort of language. People are not talking. So, for example, if I have to say something on social, I might not use English or Hindi or any other language continuously for the entirety of that piece of content.
Right.
I might switch between languages. I might use words that are, have just sort of emerged from internet culture. So even though it seems like a very small aspect, it's a monumental thing when the final product comes out and how people perceive that brand,
Right.
So we wanted to experiment with language. So we don't use very informal language. I mean, our producers or anchors. But they don't restrict themselves that if we're talking in English, then we'll only be talking in English. Or
You
if
have
we're
a lot
talking in
of
Hindi.
Hinglish.
There is a lot of English. Yeah. So things like this, we wanted the topics to be serious, but we wanted the presentation to be simplified, have the same kind of rigor. So it's almost like marrying both worlds. So we, for example, our director of news is Rahul Srivastav. He's a news veteran. He's ex-NDTV, ex-India Today. Now he brings a certain kind of credibility, gravitas, but he also brings a certain kind of journalistic rigor in identifying content, of asking questions if you're doing an interview, doing the right research. And we bring in, how do we package that content?
Right.
What should be the duration of this reel? What are the best bits to get people interested in the longer video? Right? So that's the learnings that we bring in. So I keep saying that we're trying to marry the good of the old and the new world into what we are creating at Gist.
And it's very interesting because you all have a lot of explainer videos. You
Right.
have a lot of simplifying of things which could be very complicated, which means that more people will consume it and understand it. Things
Right.
like taxes and all. You want it to be simple. You don't want
Right.
it to be so difficult that the normal person is not getting it.
Correct.
You also have a lot of issue-based content, which is a trend we
Right.
see, that people feel passionate
Right.
about certain topics, and you all
Right.
are doing it. But you also have old school political reporting,
Yeah.
election covering,
yes.
somebody's on a campaign trail,
Yeah.
beat reporters, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's that
Yes.
amalgamation that you were
Yes.
speaking
Yes.
about.
Yes. So I mean, see, the thing is that if you look at elections, what we try and do is that we try and get voices from the top, the middle, and the bottom. So when I say the top, I'm talking about the people who are actually fighting the elections. Your MLA candidates, your party spokespeople, those kinds of people. A lot of those times, responses are cookie cut, and you
Yeah.
get the usual PRable content. But we have to do that, because how else will you get to know what the issues are, what are they thinking about the issues, what is the party's stance on a certain issue, etc. But we also pay a lot of attention in the the people who are working on the ground, young up and coming politicians. What do they think? What is their vision? Do they have a fresh take on issues? And ultimately the janta who's actually going to vote, because the most sticky content comes from this unfiltered, authentic rapport that the kind of content that comes when people go and hold a mic and talk to people on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think we are trying to sort of cover this stack every time there is an election. We started it at the beginning of this year, but we took it to another level during the general elections, and now all these last 4-5 state elections that have happened, Maharashtra, for example, right now. We've kind of followed that stack format.
Right. So that's great for content. That's great for satisfaction, creatively, journalistically. But business runs on revenues and
Yeah,
ads. So somewhere your business model would also be looking at, would be dependent on ad revenues.
absolutely. So that's one side of the content that we
Yeah.
do, but there's another side of the content that we do, which is, non-political content. So it's lifestyle, it's entertainment, it's culture, it's health. So a lot of the content that we do that, but there is a certain filter there also, in the sense that all of our content is firstly informative.
Right.
It has to pass that information barrier. It should be explaining something or giving the viewer a nugget of information that person didn't know, or giving a perspective that that person didn't have. And at the same time, it should be the information sort of almost goes into entertainment. Now, when I say entertainment, I'm not comparing the content that we do to an
Yeah.
influencer, but the kind of questions that we are asking, the setting we are asking it in, the mood and atmosphere of the video, that is
It has to
entertaining.
meet your standards, but
Correct.
you also do it
Yes.
obviously
Yes. You
in
need the
branded
person to be
content.
engaged.
Right.
Right. So I think that is what is getting us a wider set of audience.
Right.
It also makes the brand a little palatable on a day-to-day basis, because if you're just going to do politics and issues, then I think it gets a little too much
Yeah.
for the community as well. So you need to understand how do you break that monotony while at the same time giving people information that they require, because it's just not political news that I require.
Yeah.
I require news on various other things like health, like culture, like what movies are coming up, what actors say, those kinds of things. So I think that healthy mix is
Right.
important, and that also helps us then position ourselves to brands, saying
Correct.
that we are not just a political.
Yeah.
I think we have one advantage where we are not a breaking news platform anyways. People don't come to us to know what is happening today in the Russia-Ukraine war, or what NATO said, or things like that. So I think we have that advantage, but non-political content also helps a lot in positioning Gist as a platform where advertisers can come and speak to the community.
Absolutely. And end of the day, that's very essential. I mean, you
Yeah, that
do
is
have a business
for
to
a
run.
new media
Yeah.
company where you are reliant on third-party social media for distribution. That is, I mean, that's the holy grail of
Yeah.
like sustaining yourself.
So where do we see Just going from here? I mean, are you raising around, launching an app, anything, or all of the above?
No, I think right now the idea is basically we're going to complete 2 years next month. So the first year went away a lot in hiring, experimenting, setting up the team, knowing what is working, ironing out issues,
Right.
operational issues, stuff that anyone will take to sort of set up something new. I think now we are there where we understand what are the things that are working, what our community expects of us. Our producers are now becoming faces, recognizable faces. They're creating their own micro communities. So I think I don't like 5 year, where do you see yourselves? Nobody's at 20, if some startup would have said in 2019 that this is where I see myself in 5 years, the next 2 years, nobody saw it coming, right?
Yeah.
Pandemic, lockdown.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very, first of all, we're in a space where everything is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Then you're in a volatile world as well, right? You
Yeah.
don't know when, I don't want to like
Preempt
jinx
fate.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to give you 5 year plans, but I think in 2025 we are very clear that we want to double down on stuff and consolidate our position where we are.
Right.
That might include having, extending our, so right now we are only doing video content, but we might get into textual content and launch our website.
Nice.
Create textual content like we did at ScoopWhoop. But I can only give you that kind of visibility right now. I think
Sure.
it's a little premature to say ki, we want to do this, we want
No,
to do that.
2025 is good.
Yeah.
We will take that. So let's come towards the end of our chat, and let's talk a little bit about again our shared roots, Calcutta. So we're both from there. For people who are listening and watching, Rishi and I met in our English tuition class in
Yeah.
college. I think both of us bunked that class a lot.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You were always late.
Yeah.
I went in for the notes. So that's it. But
Actually, I also went in for the notes.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, we don't really need tuition. I mean, you
Yeah.
go, I mean, in college.
Yeah.
But fond memories of Calcutta, English, college, and tell me a bit about how that, when you look back at the city, we are all
Yeah.
Probashis now.
Huh.
How does that feel? Do you feel nostalgic?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel nostalgic about Calcutta. I mean, it's one of, I mean, being Bengalis and being also, Calcutta is such a unique city.
Yeah.
I mean, every city is unique to a certain extent, but it's also this, I mean, it's so cosmopolitan, at least where I grew up, central Calcutta, it used to be so cosmopolitan. We had like Anglo-Indian community,
Yeah.
Muslims, Hindus, Bengalis, non-Bengalis,
Yeah.
Marwaris, Sindhis. You had it's almost like a microcosm of India in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and and Bengalis are very chill, usually very chill.
Yeah.
They're strict about certain things, but
Yeah.
they're more tolerant. They and at least the Calcutta culture at that time when we
That
grew
we
up.
know.
Yes, that we know.
I now hear, Rishi, that there is a lot of churn and
Yes,
change
yes,
that has happened.
yes.
Maybe not that much in Cal, but the rest of the state, there is churn.
There is churn, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I look back, I mean, of course, there's nostalgia, but I also look back in anger,
Yeah.
kind of, that,
We studied
yeah,
the
because there is,
plane in college, by the way.
yeah, because there
Yeah.
is this brain drain that nobody really talks about enough about people from Calcutta specifically, right? People talk about the migration from Bihar and other states, but nobody is really talking about at a national level the kind of brain drain that has been happening for decades and continues to happen.
Yeah.
Now that you don't know what the culture of Calcutta is anymore. I mean, who are the people who are deciding to stay back in Calcutta? 90% of my friends group is not in Calcutta anymore. So I think that is the pain that I think this is shared by people. I mean, across, right?
Across. We tried to do business for a few years in Calcutta, and some
Right.
of it was very satisfying, but
Right.
growth became an issue.
Yeah.
But I understand that F&B and textiles, so a
Right.
lot of young clothing brands are coming out. They're doing quite well, is
Right.
what I understand. F&B. I mean, I'm just trying to pepper it with a
With-
little hope
Yeah.
for both of us
Yeah.
that some things are doing well, but
Right.
the brain drain is real. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I are having this conversation not in Cal, so that
Exactly.
itself is testimony. Would you ever consider going back and working?
I mean, working because I'm on digital and social, so work from home is
Yeah.
kind of an option. But
And you do
yeah,
do
I
visit
yeah
quite
I
often,
visit it
right?
at least once a year,
Yeah.
for a week, 10 days or something. But putting your whole operations there, that's still
a challenge.
yeah.
Though one digital platform has done it, but again, for different reasons, we'll talk about that
Okay.
offline. You are now a two-time founder,
Right.
right? And maybe you have more things coming up. Share with our audience some tips, especially with the background that you've had. You've may not have thought that you'd be a business person, but you have. So give them some tips on how to navigate if they're all first time business people.
I think see, I think a lot of people downplay the factor of luck in this. So, you have to be lucky. Lucky in the sense that you have to be around people and in an environment where, because I'm not a natural, I would say, business person. I've had to sort of work very hard at it. And I could only get to the stage where I am because of the people around me and the environments that they created. Because they kind of challenged me to think very differently than what I was thinking or looking at things. So I think I was lucky from that point of view that I found myself a bunch of people who I was around. So if you don't have it naturally in your circle and you're still thinking, I think you need to go and seek out people who will challenge the way you're thinking. It's very different, being a salaried employee versus an entrepreneur business person, because it's almost a complete shift in the way you think and live your life. There is a certain safety when the paycheck comes month on month. I think first you need to have that internal dialogue or monologue with yourself that it's not going to be like this. It's going to be very rough. You won't know one day from the other, how things are going to turn out. So it's all very good and exciting to sort of sit back and say I want to have this life. But after the honeymoon period is over, and
Yeah.
you're in your third year or fourth year, and you're not seeing growth, you're not seeing revenue, you're not seeing avenues, can you still go on? Can you still have that within you? So I think that is the first thing that I would urge everybody to do, to have that kind of conversation. The second thing would be to surround yourself with people who give you that space. They both can go hand in hand. And the third is just jump, basically. I don't think you can plan this.
With a parachute or without a parachute? Did you jump
You
with a
figure that out once you've jumped. Yeah, I think first thing is to jump.
Yeah, take the
Yeah.
leap of faith.
Yes,
And I always say that, same as what you say.
but everything is a leap of faith, no? Don't you
Yeah.
think? I mean, joining a place,
Not joining is also a
not
leap
joining,
of faith.
like,
decided not to do something.
correct.
Yeah.
Relationships are a leap of faith.
The
Everything
biggest, probably.
yeah. So I think this is a little, people have like
Yeah.
adulterated this term a little bit. I think everything is a leap of faith. It's just that it's not structured when you're an entrepreneur.
True.
You know.
And agreeing with you, instead of the salaries getting credited, be comfortable with the money getting debited.
Yeah,
Because
that's
the
right.
moment you
Yeah.
become an entrepreneur, you
Yeah.
have to stop thinking of yourself, and
Correct,
it's your
yeah.
team that you think
Yes,
of.
yes.
Their salaries,
Yes.
you're living for a greater
Yes.
group of people, not
Right.
just your immediate
Yes,
self. So I
yes.
always say that. We must ask you this, because you've dealt with content for so long now, right? I mean, you have changed your streams, you've changed your businesses, but content has stayed true. So some tips for younger content creators. It is a very saturated market as well, and I know some of it you mentioned about keeping the
I think they should be
finger
giving
on the
me tips. Younger content creators. I mean,
join Gist.
yeah,
Maybe
I mean, join
that
join
could be
Jist.
a good way
But
of
I mean,
learning.
content is such a vast term. If I think, I mean, not really, because the idea is, I think we're overcomplicating it a little bit. I think things are getting even more and more simpler. I think the complicated or the hard work here is to know the content that you're doing. Is it interesting? I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost like starting a business. Is it interesting? Is there an audience for it? And is it scalable? Like, can you do this 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line? I mean, not do the same thing, but at least there is room to maneuver and
Right.
pivot slightly. So I think these are the three things that you need to first sit on the drawing board and see whether what you're seeing on the paper is something that interests you as well. Because content creation online is a lot also about, if you're an individual content creator especially, is also a lot about authenticity.
Yeah.
So you can't do something just because it's trending and then you run out of fuel after 3 months.
Yeah.
Right? That won't work. So it's something that you are passionate about as well. You think about, you consume a lot of that content, and you have that unique perspective on this, or a experience that you want to share with your community, and then build the community from there.
Right. Wise words, Rishi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great pleasure speaking to you, and thanks for joining us on What India
Thank you,
Needs.
Shutapa. Great chatting with you as well.
Thank you for joining us on What India Needs podcast. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any comments, leave it below. Thank you. See you next time.